what level of protection is DSS able to provide similarly maybe to U.S. Secret Service when you think about this? And, is there a counter assault team? Is there a sniper team that's DSS? Is there a special advanced team beyond those two teams? Like, does it run that deep? Do we have all these types of people at DSS too?
We have most of that stuff.
Okay.
So, and you're going to lead me into other topics. This is so fun. So we can staff a detail from a very small escort where the person, it's very low likelihood of threat. And again, all of this is intelligence-based analysis, depending on what's happening with world affairs. How known is this person? Because you could have somebody that most Americans wouldn't even recognize. And that person could walk down the street and not be targeted.
Right.
But then if you put 6 guys wearing suits around them, like now it's going to draw attention. So we kind of try to do our due diligence in figuring out what is appropriate for this person at this time, given the climate.
Right.
And then we can do these smaller, just like escort type, couple agent type of details, all the way up to our high threat details, which would be somebody, the Secretary of State is always high threat. He is very well known. And so he obviously would make a very good target if somebody wanted to send a statement in a terrorist act.
Sure.
So he's always high threat. He's going to get the most resources. And then we have sort of medium and middle in there as well, where we decide what is going to be the size of this footprint. So we have the ability to put all of that. If counter snipers were necessary based on what we had analyzed, that's probably something that we're going to use our partners for.
Gotcha.
We, unfortunately, as much as I think it would be cool to be able to train as a sniper for DSS, like that's not currently something that is an agent track.
Got it.
As far as a CAT team, we can provide that in-house. We have an office within DSS called MSD, Mobile Security Deployments. I served there once, and I'm leaving on Saturday to go back for another tour there, so I can talk about that at length as well. But MSD has a lot of heightened capabilities. It consists of agents that have additional training, and so they can staff that counter-assault team that would support a detail if there was a heightened threat. So I think that answers your question.
It absolutely answers my question. I just didn't know how, to what depth and breadth for that matter, like DSS had those types of resources, training, and, how much do you have to farm out or couple with your partners. Okay. So that handles kind of, again, like the investigations that are being done and the security end of things here. What other types of domestically, because I want to move to the global stuff in a minute, but what else kind of domestically are you doing? For example, I think the last time I had you in the gym, we talked a little bit about something you were doing that day. You were going out, I think you were consulting with a local, I can't remember I know exactly where it was, but I can't remember exactly what you were doing. Can you talk about that? Yeah,
we kind of got cut off there, and I didn't get to tell you more of the details about that. The substation for PG&E, right, Pacific Gas and Electric, is located in Metcalf, which is not too far from you here in San Jose. And about 12 or less than 12 hours after the Boston Marathon bombing attack happened, there was an attack on the Metcalf substation with small arms fired, unknown how many attackers there were. But it is the closest that anyone has gotten to destabilizing the U.S. grid.
The power grid.
And this one substation would have taken out the entire western area, which I believe is 11 states. So this was, and it's wild that it was probably in the news at the time, but
people were not talking about this.
But I think it was totally overshadowed by what happened in Boston. And it was really interesting timing by the terrorist because the law enforcement resources were so strained. So that's something that would have normally been investigated by the FBI, and they would have jumped right on it and dug right in. But because everyone was running leads for Boston, including out here on the West Coast, like everybody was tapped and stressed, already stretched. So this was something that happened right here in the backyard
15 miles from here
of our domestic field office. So we had an agent that was working here. He was our liaison to the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. And he had the opportunity to take a tour and to hear kind of the breakdown and the briefing about Metcalf and the subsequent investigation that did happen. And he was leaving for his next assignment, but he mentioned to one of the supervisors, like, hey, this was actually really cool. And it's a thing that the FBI does for their purposes. But what these security personnel working for PG&E, like what they did and what they are doing is what DSS agents are doing at their posts overseas.
Okay.
So not only did they have to kind of manage the investigation, all the different entities, local, state, federal that were involved, but then they had to identify areas of vulnerability and do physical security upgrades. And they noticed that certain relationships were not in place, which led to a breakdown in communication as this was happening and as it was all unfolding. So they basically took all of their lessons learned and then worked on putting those relationships in place, worked on educating police dispatchers and things to understand, like, if somebody's saying they're shooting at Metcalf, they're shooting at the substation, you want that dispatcher to immediately recognize what they're talking about and for there not to be a delay in response. So basically, the PG&E security guys were doing what we would call in DSS RSO work. So RSO stands for Regional Security Officer. And when a DSS agent is posted at a U.S. embassy or consulate overseas, that's the job they're doing: managing security, physical security of the compound, maintaining relationships with the host nation and local law enforcement. And so we were able to arrange this tour for our agents here in the San Francisco field office to go out and do the site walkthrough and get the briefing and hear of how that all went down.
And so you were part of this kind of follow-up?
Yes. And it was really cool because the majority of our agents are in their first tour with DS. So they all they're straight out of training or up to 2 years on the job. It's a 2-year assignment, so we just have them for a short time. Mm-hmm. And this was a really unique opportunity for them to see this RSO work, like right in their backyard.
They're right here, not
at a domestic office.
Not have to be in another country.
Exactly.
To do that.
So now when they do transfer to an assignment, and if they're going off to be the ARSO, the assistant RSO, they already kind of are starting to develop an idea of what that work is going to look like. So I thought that was a really awesome thing that agent kind of recommended. And it was cool that we were able to follow up and get them that experience.